I discussed this story a couple of months ago, and this is my favorite story that I have reported all year in these here United States. Before I get into this story, understand that I'm not here pushing any form of racial guilt at all. I'm merely having a conversation about how America once was and how some people could easily be alienated and not considered a part of society. And this included jobs, any kind of opportunities, and redlining and housing, which happened to mostly blacks, but it hardly happened only to black people in this country. Sorry about my throat. Yeah, my oven is just preheated too, so apologize for all the noise. I'm trying to get this done as fast as possible because these new neighbors are noisy and have no sense of class. That's another story for another day. Bad neighbors. All right. You see the photos on the screen? I know this is familiar to you because I told you about Gus Thompson a couple of months ago, the foundational black American male who was born a slave and then post-slavery moved out west, worked for someone else, then started his own businesses and wound up on Coronado Island, which we now know in California has one of the more expensive real estates that there is to have there. He decided to rent a house to a Chinese American family, the Dongs. I'll let you all go back and watch that story. I've also put the photo up of his wife, Emma, because previously I only really talked, I think, more about Gus. They did have 3 children. Their youngest one, Edward, would go on to be, for his time, the best African-American football player in any school and college, I think. But you can fact check me, on the Pacific Coast. So they made huge strides in California history, despite the fact we don't know much about them, and lots of people outside of the greater San Diego area doesn't talk about the Thompsons really. Well, the articles are about to pop up. Recall that the Dongs lived in that house for decades after Gus rented to them and subsequently let them buy it out, because he was one of the few renters who would let non-whites rent to own things, because he understood that the white population there at the time would not rent to anyone who was not white or anyone that was a certain type of immigrant. And I think at this time there was a known undercut of discrimination against the Irish in the area as well. But I would have to eventually research that if I ever get the time. So the Dongs have decided to sell the house and a building next to it that functions as a rental apartment. The house has since gone into escrow. I don't know for sure if someone else backed out, but $5 million is still going to be donated to Black American students as a thank you from the Dongs to pay it forward when Gus allowed the Dongs to rent and subsequently buy that little house. Anywhere else in the United States, that house would not be, those 2 little spots would not be worth $8 million, but the fact that it is a blessing. Much less that 5 of that 8 million that family would like to donate to Black American students. For me, that's not the most heartwarming story. It is the update to this story. Before the Dongs sell the house, they invited a few of the great grandchildren of Gus and Emma Thompson to come tour the house. And the house right now, as it stands, also had some mementos in it staged speaking on the life of Gus and Emma Thompson. So it's just a heartwarming and touching story of the great grandkids coming and walking into their great grandfather's shoes to see what it was like for him, for Gus, coming out of slavery straight to California, to become an entrepreneur and to become someone who paid it forward to marginalized people. There were tears, there were hugs, and there was a little conversation. I harbor no illusions, right, that there's been some divides as of late, affirmative action being one between some Black people and some Asian people. And I have to emphasize that because I would say in the last 10 years, maybe more than that, I've seen a slight increase of marriages and friendship and growing friendships and etc. between the groups. Gus Thompson, at least the Thompsons and the Dongs, are a stark reminder that less than 200 years ago in this country, really less than 100 years ago, this was the early 20th century, it was best to have that solidarity and kindness, because greater society shuts you out from certain things. It's not uncommon for us to go to public parks, public restaurants, public restrooms now, public theaters, public schools, most of the time, because there still are some segregated schools. They don't talk about it, but we know in the deep South, there's still some segregated schools and segregated proms. That's beyond me. Even growing up in Alabama, my prom wasn't segregated in 1997 and 1998. I didn't go to either one of them, so I didn't care. As much as there's been some tension, some strife, and some animosity, the continued solidarity, the continued kindness, the continued gratitude that this story shows is that while some people of both of the races and both of the groups don't get along, some can come together at a time when it's most needed to show that someone's kindness can affect someone else's moves in life. The fact that this family was this grateful to give $5 million when technically they bought the house and could keep it, to me is a very touching tribute to a man who was born in slavery, met his wife in California, and helped people up after himself being born in the worst of circumstances, that being chattel slavery. Gus Thompson, or really the Thompsons and the Dongs, represent everything that is good about the United States. That this solidarity for those who want it, and I use my words carefully because some in both groups don't, and that's okay. But they are a testament that this solidarity is possible, that it can work, that it does work. If you allow it to. I gotta say, this is my favorite story because, like I said, I'm still working on my Asian and Black relations series that comes out in November, and I got like 5 more videos to make, but my job keeps me so busy and these people are so noisy that I have to record late at night to get any semblance of peace, or really early in the morning before it gets like noisy. It's just, this is a heartwarming story. Because people can remember people's kindness. People can be reminded that there's a solidarity there. I'm happy to see reconciliation like this. And with all the negative news we're getting lately, I'd prefer these type of stories over the other stuff. Here's hoping that both the Dongs and the Thompsons continue, that their descendants continue a storied legacy that will move California, who's having its own issues right now, into a more vibrant future.